Right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time today to join us on our bi-weekly podcast. We got a great show today. We're going to be going through some of these tax planning ideas. One of the best parts about this time of year is the fact that we now have a clearer picture of what our taxes were last year. And that gives us the ability to do a lot of different planning, whether it's things that you can take home and do yourselves and just be cognizant of, or is it something that we're going to be having conversations of in future meetings, things along those lines. So we're going to kind of outline where our heads go when we have these kind of opportunities. Sort of that January 1st to that April 15th mark, that's tax preparation. Yeah, there's some planning that goes on there, but now April 15th through December 31st, it's tax planning time. So Ken was just recently at Ed Slot. He'd have a lot to say right now if you had the opportunity to. We're going to go ahead and do it for him. But, anyways, like we always do, we're going to start going big. So, my gratitude today is that in a few days, well, first off, it was my beautiful wife's birthday yesterday. And always love being able to celebrate that with her, whether I'm with her or not. We still find a way to make it a good time. But on top of that, her and I are going to be going to Europe for the first time this weekend. We're going to Italy. And my gratitude goes out to the reason why we're going to Italy, and that is to celebrate one of my best friend's wedding. And in the spirit of tax planning, it's not the only reason, but it might have been a consideration as to why there was a quick wedding in a December a couple of years ago, and now we're finally getting a chance to celebrate it together. Maybe somebody can spread my very
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I would say that that would be my gratitude as well. So what Mike is referring to is Ollie and I's official wedding. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to marry the love of my life twice. So it'll be a great time. And to Mike's point, I said in December of 2024, I said, babe, this is the number 10th reason on the list to get married before the end of the year. But this would be the tax savings by married filing jointly versus the single brackets. But extremely grateful for the opportunity to do that, spend time with Mike and other of the best friends I have in the entire world. And I was thinking about it, and I think it's one of my first vacations ever. That's not non-ultra run or sports. So extremely exciting time. So thank you, Mike.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just thinking about it too. Every time I get on a plane to go between Wisconsin and DC, I enviously look at those who can belly up to the bar and enjoy a drink or do something like that. I'm always traveling for business. It's going to be strange to be in an airport and actually go somewhere for pleasure. So it'll be lovely. But anyways, Ryan, what is your gratitude for today? I think so I can hear Ryan in the other room, but he's not coming through for me.
Problems.
Anybody else? Oh, there he is. All right, give it a go
There I
again,
am.
Ryan.
Yeah. Grateful today for bonding opportunities with my girls. My youngest is learning how to ride her bike this summer. So just like the joy and excitement on her face when she learns how to do something new and getting to be a part of that is really special.
Excellent. All right, and right down the line, Ben. How about you?
Thanks, Mike. No, I'm grateful for on the side, I get to coach high school baseball. I coach at my alma mater. I'm the head varsity coach there in the springtime. So I'm grateful for our team and being able to have the opportunity to help teach young men to become young men, which is really, really exciting to help craft and shape them into wonderful, wonderful young men. And we have a lot of them on the team. So I'm really proud of them.
Excellent. Perfect. No, Ben, you're doing a great job with that as well. We enjoy being a fly on the wall to overhear some of the ups and downs of that lifestyle. So, Mr. Birschbach with the good hair, what do you got?
Thank you, Mike. My gratitude today actually goes out to my parents who are moving closer to the Milwaukee area. We have a growing family. I'm not the one that is contributing to that. That would be my older brother. But just ultimately excited to spend some more time with them and just one off stopping by instead of having to kind of plan that full day to go see them. So just really excited for them, my older brother, and our entire family.
Excellent. We're all anxiously wondering, Michael, when you and your longtime partner, Megan, are going to take the tax planning decision to get married. maybe something to consider. Just,
I'll have to talk to one of the advisors at Gentian to see if they can help me out.
I don't know if we specialize in that sort of thing, but anyways, dollars and cents, that's kind of where I come in. All right. Well, anyways, let's kind of get right into it. So we're going to go into a couple different things. So first and foremost, I will be passing it back to Michael in a second here, but we're going to hear a little bit about, so we got a refund this last year. Now what? What does that mean? Is that a good thing? How do we want to think about that? Michael's going to go in a little bit of detail there. We're going to break things up a little bit, pass it back to Ryan. He's always got some great health and wealth insights to kind of share to us, given his previous life before being an advisor here at Gentian Financial. And then back to Zach. Zach's going to talk a little bit about tax planning, some of the opportunities, some of the things that we see. I'm just hanging out. I'm going to fill in the blanks, and we're going to go from there. And then Ben's going to tell you what's to see and watch for at Gentian Financial coming up here. So. Anyways, all right, Michael, I got married last year. And so with that, we withheld way too much money. And we would have had a really large refund if it wasn't for some tax planning decisions along the way. So those who would have a very large refund, what can you say about that? What are some of the things that they should consider?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I think the biggest question or the most common phrase I hear after you overhear someone talking about taxes is did you owe? Did you get a refund? Did you break even? I think a better question to ask yourself when you get to this point in the year when taxes are filed, assuming you didn't file an extension, is did you get a surprise this year? Did you, if you did, I would just pause for a moment and think about what really changed from the prior year. Now, there was some new tax law changes that were put through 2028, especially for a lot of our clients who are of retirement age. But I think the next question is that when you think about what changed from the prior year, the next question should be, do I need to change anything now? And the question that can help you kind of guide from there is that does this year's income sources seem similar to last year? So typically a good rule of thumb is if you have a life change, there's probably a tax change. So marriage has been mentioned a few times, divorce, if you get a new job, a big raise, if you receive an inheritance, sell your business, retire. These are just a handful of examples that probably mean that something's going to change with your taxes. So if you owed or got a big refund, I want to point to a couple of common areas depending on what phase of life you are in, where you can look at to make some adjustments, whether you need to withhold some more taxes if you owed a lot and want to get a little bit closer to that break even number, or if you got a big refund and maybe need to withhold a little bit less taxes, keep a little bit more money in your pocket throughout the year. So just three of these to look at. If you are working and making earned income, talk with your HR department, adjust some of your withholdings that come out of your paycheck, whether you need to withhold more or less. Again, that's a good area to look at. If you are receiving Social Security benefits, there is an opportunity to set up tax withholding on those Social Security benefits that you are receiving. And the third one would be adjusting some withholdings on your retirement account distributions. So this is also a big one. It kind of boils into the retirement income plan that we talk about with a lot of clients. There's certain things we can withhold taxes from, or certain income that we can, and there's certain types of income that we can't withhold taxes from. So balancing that out and just making sure that there's not a massive surprise for us can be a big benefit. If you do nothing and you owed this year, and you're not going to plan on changing anything, it's a good idea to plan on needing that cash flow next April when it comes time to owe some money for taxes. So if you change nothing, just plan on probably something similar happening at this point next year if your income looks the same. So if you did get a big refund, my question would be, what did you do with it? I think a good opportunity to make some good decisions with that money could be adding to that emergency fund. If that savings that you have for those surprises is getting a little bit low, it's a good opportunity to stash that away for those surprises that we can't anticipate. If you have some high interest debt that's accumulating, like credit card debt, maybe a good idea to look at knocking some of that down instead of accumulating that high interest. If you have kind of tackled both of those items and want to invest some of that money, looking at some IRA accounts, investment accounts, and kind of lastly here, treating yourself to some degree. There's an element of enjoying today, but also saving for tomorrow. So maybe it's a combination of both with that refund you receive. So if you want to talk with us from a planning perspective, your CPA about your taxes, withholdings, changing some of those things, we're happy to reach out to us. But I think it's a good opportunity at this point in the year to start to review some of that stuff. Back to you.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, no, you bring a lot of great points there. And it's something that I really enjoyed that you said is in being able to enjoy the refund a little bit more, doing something that might be pleasurable for you, spending that money in that way. I do want to remind everyone that when we look at a refund, you are kind of giving the IRS an interest-free loan. That is your money that was withheld throughout the year that you are then getting back because you overpaid on your taxes. So on that topic of enjoyment, could a little bit of extra cash flow by adjusting those withholding percentages be a benefit to you and how things go throughout the course of the year? Or is that refund something that's helpful to be able to stash a little bit more because it forcibly creates a little bit of extra money that comes all at once? It's not a bonus, it's your own money coming back to you, but something to consider. And we generally don't want to plan on receiving a refund. And why is that? Is because tax laws change, things changes, and people sometimes anticipate that. And when you anticipate receiving money one way or the other, it can be unproductive because you overspend leading up to receiving it. It's just a mental piece, especially those who are in the early stages of their career and they're earning along the way. Sometimes optimizing the amount of money that you receive throughout the course of the year by adjusting those withholding percentages, maybe making a change on how you contribute to your retirement accounts. If you're doing pre-tax and you're getting a big refund, flip that thing to Roth. Regardless, if you're a young saver, I would highly recommend for anybody on the call who isn't and knows a young saver, make sure that they're putting their money in their 401k into their Roth. If we aren't considering other things, starting when you're young and allowing that money to appreciate, I'm not too concerned on what your income level is until we get into our mid to late 40s, right? Roth assets, because of the appreciation that you're going to create, is going to be your largest benefit long term for a young saver. So just something to consider there, especially if they're getting a large refund when it comes to tax time. So just little pieces to bring up, little tidbits that you can either apply in your own life or share with someone else. But anyways, I want to bring Ryan on, break us up a little bit from this tax talk. Ryan, what do you got for us?
Yeah, hopefully this will be a little bit exciting for some people. The things that we really need to think about in terms of the greatest predictors of mortality, which is a fancy way of saying they predict how long we will be able to live independently. And there's really two items that are the greatest predictors when it comes to our strength and physical abilities. And they're kind of not in the normal line of thinking for most people. Those two things being your grip strength and your ability to get up off of the ground. Which ability to get up off the ground makes a lot of sense. If you have a fall or a slip, are you able to get yourself independently back up off the ground to then take care of yourself, right? Grip strength also comes into play in similar scenarios. Do you need to use some assistance of holding on to something in order to get your body weight up off the ground? So these two things have been consistently identified in research throughout the last several decades as the greatest predictors of mortality. So encouraging, as we always have, for people to do some sort of fitness training, do strength training, especially as we age, as it helps with bone density as well. So again, some protection if you have a slip and fall type scenario. The earlier in your life that you can start training these things, the better. But it's not ever too late to start training them. Try and maintain and keep the abilities that you have as long as possible. Because as the old adage of, if you don't use it, you lose it, when it comes to physical conditioning is very true in many respects. So what can we do? Very simple things. If you have some tools and exercise equipment, it can be helpful. But for these two things, you really don't need any equipment. So grip strength being the first example, that ability to squeeze your hands tight and to hold on to objects is as simple as squeezing your hand and flexing those muscles. If you can have something in your hand, some sort of a tennis ball or a stress ball, any of those sort of kind of squeezable objects to create some resistance and to exercise those muscles in different positions. So when I squeeze my fist closed, my fingers are very wrapped in tight. When I have something in my hand, I'm flexing those muscles in a very different position. So training that entire range of motion. If you have something available to resist opening your hand, we want to train those opposing muscles as well and keep that balance. There are gadgets that you can get that will go on your fingertips, and it's like a fancy looking rubber band. You could also just use a simple rubber band to create some resistance. But again, you don't have to have any equipment. I can just wrap my fingers around the outside of my other hand and resist trying to open my hand to flex those muscles. So we're training that grip strength in both directions. And likewise with getting up off of the ground, very simple way that we can train that is just to practice that movement. It sounds kind of silly, but you can simply let your body down to the ground easily, slowly, as if you were laying down on a bed or mattress, but you're doing it onto the floor, and practice how you're going to get up from that position. Can I do it without using a chair or a table or a countertop in order to be able to do that? Can I do it in a totally empty space just with my own body? And practice those movements. How can I do this more efficiently? Can I get into a lunge position and then stand up from that position? And that leads into the last exercise I would recommend everybody practices is some sort of a variety of lunges. That single leg balance and strength is going to help you not have slip and falls and stand up if you are in a position where you need to get up off of the ground with no assistance. So lunge positions, practicing getting up off of the ground, and working on those squeezing type movements with your hands to train that grip strength can help us live independently as long as possible. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Ryan. I mean, it's one of those things that with the grip strength and everything like that, just with any functional exercise, it helps so much. I mean, I love to weight train, and to be able to get over certain plateaus, sometimes all it takes is a little bit more strength in those forearms. And I get there by using some of these stress balls, using some of the little tools, what Ryan described, especially on days like today when we have the Federal Reserve coming out with new interest rates, trying to figure out what that may be. Spoiler alert, apparently the internet believes that there's a 100% chance nothing's changing there. So we'll see if they're correct. And then on top of that, we've got a big earnings season this week. So a way to alleviate that stress when all of this stuff is going on is to work that grip strength, work on some of those things. And I know Zach's going to maybe allude to some of that stuff on top of a few others. Ryan is a kind of our resident strength training athlete turned ultra sort of marathon runner in the woods kind of guy. He's got some pretty impressive ambitions and goals. But on top of all of that, he leads all of the trading behind the scenes, and he is like my right hand when it comes to researching different investments, stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, things like that. And I do just want to talk a little bit about the investment piece because that's very important when it comes to our decisions around taxes. So when we have a clear picture of your tax from the year before, and something that we will always preach and always mention is one of the most helpful things that you can do, whether we need it or not, is upload your most current tax return to your Client Access Vault. That gives us immediate access to be able to see it. And it also gives you document retention in a place that you can get it whenever you may need, rather than it just stored on a hard drive or printed and put in a file. So using that Client Access Vault, we highly recommend putting your taxes there. It really helps us to be able to then see the whole picture. We have planning software, we have all of this stuff to be able to build something, build scenarios that we can then confirm with your accountant or talk through with you and decide if that's the right planning opportunity going forward. Coming back to this idea about planning and investments is that sometimes there's years where we want to control our capital gain distributions. Why that might be? Well, you may have a higher income year for reason. Maybe you restricted stock that is vesting at your company, or maybe you are receiving an inheritance and now we have to start unwinding traditional IRA assets that you have now gotten over the course of 10 years. And so that creates a bigger distribution. On top of all of that, what if there's something that you're selling, a second home with a big capital gain all of itself, and we want to look for losses? When we can paint a picture of a probable tax occurrence alongside what we know from last year, we can be very smart about our investments. Now, we never want, and Zach shared this with me from an older client that shared it with him, we never want the tax tail to wag the investment dog. So at the end of the day, we need to answer the question, does tax efficiency enhance our goals? Or could a potentially more tax inefficient investment be better for us because we don't have to worry about that? And when we choose what we're invested in, whether it be an ETF, which is a very tax efficient investment, and of course, this only pertains to brokerage accounts, which we have in, or taxable brokerage accounts, I should say, in which we have capital gains tax, which we have to pay throughout the year. We have the opportunity to buy something called ETFs, and ETFs do not spit out as much taxes over the course of the year. But what we have found over time is that actually active managed mutual funds, where we can get into a professionally managed account by a professional money manager, doctors in some cases, to make decisions to buy and sell beneath the surface. And all we have to worry about is paying some of the tax on the smart decisions that they make at the end of the year. We believe that there's a lot of opportunity for growth there. So if growth outweighs the tax efficiency, that's a decision that we have to weigh. But if we know throughout the course of the year, if we know coming up, and this is new money that we're putting to work, that we need to be tax efficient because of maybe brackets you're in today that you won't be tomorrow, ETFs are something that we actively consider. On the other side of the equation, if we have something trading at a loss, if we have these mutual fund tax lots that we've received because of these capital gain distributions getting paid to us, because of these dividends over time, and we have to restrict the amount of tax that we incur in this individual year, but we don't want to interrupt our investment process with rebalancing, we can be very selective and sell specific tax lots to make sure that we can keep income lower. Why I tell you this, it's nothing that you need to do, right? At the end of the day, except for be forthcoming with what scenario we might be faced with in this specific year. These are things that we think about. This is what happens beneath the surface, and this is something that Ryan and myself are very active with those conversations. So beyond that, there's a lot of other reasons why we want to be able to see your tax return on a year-over-year basis. And to get into some of those, I'm going to bring Zach on the call. I think, Zach, one of the things that we also talked about a lot with the refund idea that Michael brought up, we spoke about withholding. With the new tax, a lot of older clients actually received a refund, and you can adjust withholding in certain places, turning that down, making those kind of decisions. Or there's probably some other things that we could utilize that money for in the coming years while we still have the ability to have that extra standard deduction. So Zach, I'll let you take it away and talk the talk.
Sounds great, Mike. I really appreciate it. I'll go through some of those, and then just to keep the normal frequency of our bi-weekly webinars, I'll kind of share where the markets are at for the year, because the month of April was an incredible month for the markets. So as Mike mentioned, and as we've talked about many times, either in our meetings or in these bi-weekly webinars, last year in July, a new tax law change, the OBBBA, went into effect, and two of the biggest items inside of there that affected taxes in 2025 that we're seeing on the 2025 tax return now is the benefit of the extra senior deduction. So 65 and older, as long as our income is below certain thresholds, we each received, if we're married filing jointly, we each received a $6,000 standard deduction on top of the normal standard deduction. So it's possible that if we're both over 65, married filing jointly under those income limits, that we received an extra $12,000 plus the normal 65 and older or blind benefits of about $1,300 each. It's possible that the standard deduction was upwards of 46, 47,000, which made a big difference. We may not have made big changes last year to see the impact of that with the other tax law changes, but looking at it this year, that could have caused a bigger refund. That could be an opportunity to do a conversion up to the senior deduction amount, or potentially even a little bit more. And then the other one that extremely interesting to look at is the ability to potentially itemize if we're 65 and under, because they increased the state and local tax deduction from 10,000 to 40,000. If our adjusted gross income is above 500,000, starts to phase out. But that could be interesting to take a look at, that could add into finding other opportunities to increase our itemized deductions, whether it's charitable giving of appreciated stock, donor advised funds where we bunch a bunch of contributions into one year. So really taking a look at, and smart tax moves this year is just with the tax law changes last year, some of them are going to sunset, if you will, in 2028. How can we take advantage of those really the next 3 years? And that's something we're actively taking a look at for each of you. And really the biggest part of that is what Mike mentioned is if we have that tax return, we're not tax preparers, we're tax planners. So that tax return is almost like a Bible for us to dictate what is the best move for the rest of this year, or even if it's we're not going to make any changes now, but this is something to look at, that if we have a market correction, this is how we're going to take advantage of it. This is going to be the impact of it. And having that tax return is extremely beneficial. And then running that by either yourself, if you're preparing it on your own, or your accountant to see if those make sense. And one kind of really fun fact when it comes to withholding, we may have gone through this with you in individual meetings, but really the IRS looks at it as income generated throughout the year, income made through the year. Those estimates come into play because it's when you received that income during the year. So if you had a big distribution in a certain quarter, you may have to adjust estimates to do that. But one really cool thing is that withholding from an IRA is viewed as if it was spread out evenly throughout the entire year. So if somehow something unexpected occurred later in the year, we could work with your accountant to do a one-off distribution from the IRA here that has max withholding, either federal or state, and it would look like as if that money was withheld throughout the entire year evenly. So there's some really just amazing tools in our planning quiver, if you will. And one last thing, a smart tax planning thing and smart investment thing that really is top of mind. A 530A account, also more commonly known and referred to as a Trump account, is going to be something new this year. We released a few pieces of information to you guys via email a few weeks ago, but we learned some new things about it, and we just stress a little bit of caution to see if it makes sense. So if you have a child or grandchild under the age of 18, you can put up $5,000 a year into this. It's going to operate like a traditional IRA for them. But we found out, Ken, through his great work with Ed Slott, found out that Wisconsin is one of 7 states that actually isn't going to honor that. And there's going to be some taxes on growth along the way. So as usual with these, things that look simple and look great on the front, clear as mud in the actual practice of it. So we're analyzing those closely. One argument that we've seen of it is even though it's operating like a traditional IRA, if your child or grandchild at 18 through 22 more than likely may not have a lot of income, could potentially do Roth conversions, get that money tax-free for them, and be tax-free for them when they take it out later in life. A few caveats with that is it could affect FAFSA because it would be viewed as an asset of the child. There's just a lot of confusion with it yet, and we kind of want to see how it's going to be in practice. But that's been something that we've been receiving a lot of questions on. I could go on for a few more hours on smart tax planning ideas, but just to switch gears just for a minute, just to give you an idea of how the markets have been doing for the year. So everything is up anywhere from 4 to 12%, and in emerging markets, 15% since the beginning of April. So the Dow Jones up 2% on the year, 5% increase since the beginning of April. S&P 500 is up 4% of the year, 8% increase, almost 9% increase since the beginning of April. The NASDAQ, heavily weighted towards technology, is up almost 9% on the year. So that's been a big one, or since the beginning of April. The Russell 2000 up almost 12% since the beginning of April, 11% on the year. International, 4% positive on the year and 5% increase over the last month. And then the biggest winner over the last month is emerging markets. So it was almost flat at the beginning of April when we talked about it on the biweekly webinar, and it's up 16% on the year. So to Mike's point about the different investment vehicles, the ability to rebalance and own the different asset classes is extremely important as we go through full market cycles, that when everything is, on a straight line up, almost like the last 15 years, not as beneficial to rebalance or be diversified. But when we go through tough times, which we know we will at some point, it's essential to an overall plan, especially in retirement when we're producing income. So really appreciate that, Mike, and back to you.
Thanks, Zach. We're doing our best Chris Doty impression right now. I'm going a little bit long on our biweekly podcast, so I'll keep it pretty brief to summarize things here. I'm going to get Ben on to talk a little bit about what to expect, but I do just want to mention just real quickly some of the other things in which we're looking at when we have the ability to see your taxes. And the things to consider are there philanthropic goals? What is the best way to give to save ourselves money on taxes? Are we turning 70 and a half this year? That gives us the ability to do QCDs. And if we have gifts, don't just feel like you need to give to charity, by the way, to save money on taxes. If you're already intending or have a future intent to, there's a lot of different vehicles that we can talk about to do that in the most beneficial way. And so yeah, in the very basics of that, that's something to consider. We just need to know about those goals. And then, of course, for others out there, the approaching idea of estate tax, things like that, that we may have to face at some point or another, whether it's that we're already over the $30 million estate tax exemption, or will that sunset, which is sort of the anticipation, although there isn't a set date like there was previously, it is sort of anticipated in professional circles that estate tax could become a bigger problem for more people in the future. So getting ahead of that, this time between April and the end of December, the idea of planning for some of those items when it makes sense is something that's top of mind for us, and we're watching within your scenarios, and now's the time to start working on some of those documents. So those are just some of the considerations when it comes to some of the planning that we're looking at that goes above and beyond just the investments and some of the stuff that we talk about. So we could go on and on and on and on. I'm going to stop myself here, which is something I'm working on because I'm pretty good at going down rabbit holes. But I'm going to bring Ben in. Ben, tell us a little bit about what we can expect at Gentian coming up.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, as always, there's no shortage of wonderful things here going on at Gentian. You may have heard a lot of times we talk about Planet Live It, Give It. Well, we got a great opportunity to give it. Tomorrow, we are needing some volunteers to help us out to do a spring cleanup at the Milwaukee Dome. So we'd love to have you join some of our team members and other members of Gentian to help us out giving back to our community for the spring cleanup. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. We'd happy to get you connected. That'll be from 10 to 1 tomorrow. We also then have our next biweekly podcast in May 13th, and that is going to be why your professional partners need to work together. We always talk here at Gentian as advisors, we like to be your quarterback for your scenario, and we like to work with the other professionals and your CPAs, your estate attorneys, all that to make sure your scenario is well-rounded for you guys. And then we also, same day, which is super wonderful, we get to just hang out with you guys. I celebrate our May birthdays. May 13th, we'll have our birthday club, so please RSVP for that by May 6th. And now looking a little bit ahead into June and later, I'm sorry, actually one more May date actually is May 27th, ladies and Gentian. We're going to have that coming back again. More details to come on that. We don't have everything quite ready to release what we have in store yet, but be tuned. We have some wonderful things planned. Then we do have our June birthday club, June 17th, as well as then our kids finance camp, which is a really cool opportunity for kids ages 7 to 14. Really learn some unique, cool skill sets for budgeting, finance, all that stuff where we can really build a nice, wonderful base for our kids. So that will be June 24th from 9:30 to 12:30 with lunch to follow for grandparents and parents after for a little lunch and learn as well for you guys to join and kind of see what's all gone on. And then way out in the distant future, which will be here before we know it, September, we have our shred event. So we'd love to have you come join us at the Doty Farm for our shred event where we get rid of some old documents that need to be disposed of and also spend some time with us. But again, we just really appreciate your time that we get to spend with you, our clients. We really look forward to that. And as always, if you need more details, check out our happenings that comes out every Monday in an email. So or reach out to a team member. We love to chat with you. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Ben. You mentioned COIs very briefly, and this is the last little piece I want to add when it comes to things that we can do at this time of year. Evaluate who has prepared your taxes, and if that's the type of job you want continued going forward for yourself. now's a good time to consider a new accountant if you feel like you need that. Make sure that you're working with somebody who has a vision of tax planning, not just tax preparation. It's a very important piece. And if you ever need a referral, we have a great stable of resources, even if you're in a state other than Wisconsin or away from some of the areas where we know the accountants personally. We have a great network to be able to find somebody able to help you in the best way possible. So before I sign off, I'm going to leave you with 3 takeaways because I think that's incredibly important. The first one that we talked about, review your refund. Whether it was a refund or you paid into taxes, do we need to adjust those withholdings somewhere? Can we do some more planning based on that money that you either received or needed to pay in to alleviate that in the future? Number 2, know your scenario. Share your tax return with us. That helps us so much in these conversations, whether we end up needing it or not. If we have this on file, it really helps us to be able to do some of this planning long term. And then finally, all this planning only lasts as long as you do. Work on those wrist exercises, the getting up, the getting down, stay healthy, find that longevity. It's so important to be active, and it's pretty cool that you can do that just sitting at your desk at certain times. So excellent. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for sticking with us here. I really enjoy the opportunity when I have it to host this. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And happy May. Hopefully the flowers are coming soon. So take care, everyone.